Welcome to What the Mom podcast. You are listening to Doulas Petra
and Jacqueline.
Motherhood can be isolating and hard.
We are two doulas who want to provide a safe place to talk about all things mom,
From pregnancy
to birth,
to postpartum.
to parenting.
Join us as we have real conversations about real life.
Welcome to What the Mom podcast.
You are listening to Doulas Petra
And Jacqueline. Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We're together, so cheers. That doesn't always happen.
That's right. But it's nice when it does.
Absolutely. We have 7 kids that we have to put to sleep. Soon to be 8 between the two of us. So it's always fun to come together and get to record our podcast and spend time together and eat junk food. We usually have wine too, but we're not doing that right now. But yeah,
It's not that bad eating today.
no, exactly. We did not eat bad. Totally.
Yeah.
It was good. We had lots of fun. We're excited to be sharing today all about labor inductions.
That's right. Labor Inductions 101. We're going to give you the quick rundown of what it is, why you might need it, types of inductions, risks,
exactly.
all the things.
Yeah.
Basic.
That you can inform yourself and make an informed decision and weigh the pros and cons over it. And sometimes risks, I mean, it depends. Like, it might outweigh what the other person, the benefit of it. And I personally myself never wanted to have an induction, but I did with my second because she was 2 weeks late.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a midwife, so they did it naturally. So I feel like it was probably better than if I was probably put on a drip. They just induced me with it's like castor oil, and they used to have this thing called verbena oil. And at the time when I was supposed to be induced, they actually, the government said we weren't allowed to use it anymore. And so I never got to use it, but we used everything else and it worked, I feel like, just the same. But
we'll talk about some of these options and more.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean,
so I guess the first thing to say is, what is an induction?
What is an induction, Petra?
It's whether you're doing it medically or naturally. You're promoting the uterus to contract and, start labor, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And why would you do it?
Yeah, why would you do it?
Well, I was just with a client. She had her baby almost 2 weeks ago. She had high blood pressure. She was older. And so she started with a midwife, and then they transferred care to an obstetrician. And they wanted to get things going just because of her high blood pressure. And so, that's what they did. And I mean, I would say, it's medical reasons, or what did we say? Medical reasons, or
usually if you're around 2 weeks past your due date.
Past your due date, exactly. Yeah.
Then they start to think about induction, because there's a higher possibility of the baby not getting the nutrition it needs, or growing too big, or the placenta just failing on you. Yeah. There's a few different reasons. They will start to talk about it at that point.
Yeah.
I had, with my first, I had high blood pressure, just like your recent client did.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I remember I had a midwife, and she was telling me all of these natural induction methods. So we're going to talk about those next right away. Mm-hmm. And I remember I tried all of these natural induction methods, and we were going to do a medical one if they didn't work. And I finally caved, and I was like, okay, let's book it. We booked for me to go into the hospital and get the medical induction. The day before, my water broke. Contraction started.
So awesome.
And then the baby was literally born the morning of the day that I had it scheduled. Yeah. Which is really funny. Doesn't always happen that way.
And I feel like you prayed for that, because it can be a little bit more intense too.
Yeah.
when they do it that way with like, were
Yeah.
they going to do it with a drip?
I don't remember what they were thinking of doing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's different ways, different types you can do inductions for
So what are some, we'll start maybe with the natural methods.
Okay. Well, when you
You
have a
wanna name a few of
midwife,
them?
naturally, they will give you a drink, and it consists of castor oil, and then it's apricot juice and almond butter. It's disgusting. I had to take it 3 times while I was in labor with my daughter. It was awful. It was not fun. I threw it up the last time.
Oh man.
And then with my last baby, actually, I took it as well, and I ended up throwing it all up. But yeah, what that can do is it can just cause your body to start to contract, and they use a lot. I mean, I have a lot of friends who just did like castor oil, and you don't want to do that because basically it makes you poop until your baby comes, and it can cause serious issues too. So that's why they do it. They counteract it with the almond butter and the juice, and it can be very effective. It was very effective in my case.
Yeah. Well, the almond butter and the juice, like they actually have other purposes, things that they do in the body as well to help. And so they all kind of work together in this synergetic way. And that sometimes is also called the midwives brew. That's what I've heard it called.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So that's not something that midwives will suggest like immediately. But it is a more natural method compared to the pharmaceutical route.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's probably like the most medicalized midwife, like natural remedy, I would say.
Yeah, I don't really think
out of all of the things that they would do.
Much more. You can also use acupressure. Like I remember, I think it was with it was Sophie. They did this thing where they stuck these little needles in like pressure points or whatever, and it was supposed to stimulate labor. It never ended up doing anything, but it can also. So I would call that a natural way of induction.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually. So, like I was gonna say, the castor oil doesn't work for everyone either, though. I did it with my first when I was past my due date.
You did.
Or sorry, my second. I did it with my first too because of my high blood pressure.
Didn't really do
we were trying natural methods. It just made, I just pooped and I had contractions start because the idea is that castor oil stimulates the bowels. The bowels are basically like touching your uterus.
Yeah.
It can cause like a reaction to make your uterus start contracting, and then if your body is ready enough, it'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Mine started and then stopped.
Mine did.
And I did it twice, didn't work either time.
Yeah.
And then I tried it with my second when I was overdue.
Mm-hmm.
And again, same thing. Like I went poo
and it didn't.
It started and I was really excited, and then it weaned out.
And then it didn't really do anything.
Yeah. And again, I did that twice and it didn't work. So I didn't use it with my third and my fourth.
Yeah.
But I've heard lots of stories like yours where it does work.
Yeah. And like it worked, but I mean, I was still in labor for a long time before it actually like produced a baby. Yeah. So who's to say? Sometimes it works for people like immediately, and others not so much. So then you have to revisit other ideas.
Yeah. Another thing that a lot of people say is to eat pineapple.
I have actually heard that too. I have heard that.
And there is a reason for this.
Yeah.
There is prostaglandins in the pineapple.
Yes, and that can cause your body.
And that can help soften the cervix to start preparing. It doesn't start the contractions per se, but it softens the cervix, preparing it to start on its own.
Did you ever use those evening primrose oils? I used them with my first. Like you're supposed to like just put them up there. Yeah. Like a suppository.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to help. Yeah.
Same thing. It would help with softening the cervix.
Yeah. I used it the first time because I was like, but I never used it after.
Yeah. Having sex as long as your water hasn't broken.
Yeah, risk of infection for sure.
So if your water has broken, you do not do this.
Refrain.
But if it has not,
Yeah.
having sex can be actually a pretty
effective way.
yeah, effective, that's the word I was thinking of.
Yeah, it definitely
effective way
can be.
And the couple of reasons, because there's two things that it will do. It semen actually contains prostaglandins as well, which can soften the cervix. And if you are having the natural oxytocin flowing through your body, and especially if you are having an orgasm during that time, then it will start the contractions, and hopefully they'll continue afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great way to use for natural, for sure.
So a lot of people will do that, and they'll swear by it and saying that helped them as well.
I've heard that too.
Nipple stimulation.
Yeah. You can use a breast pump and stimulate that too, and that can help. I actually did that with my second too.
Yeah, that's another one. Drinking red raspberry leaf tea in your third trimester.
Yeah.
Say if you do that a few times, again,
strengthens, and
that helps with the cervix as well again.
Yeah. Strengthens your uterus.
Same with eating dates.
I have heard that. Yeah.
And then certain exercises, like doing squats.
Absolutely. Bouncing on a ball.
Yeah, using the birth ball.
Yeah.
Going up and down stairs.
Yeah.
Curb walking.
Yeah.
Just going for walks in general.
Yeah.
Whether it's outside or around the house.
It's a great way to naturally stimulate your uterus.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can think of anything else. There might be a few more.
I think really we've covered a lot. Yeah, for sure.
So those would be considered the natural induction methods.
Yeah.
Oh, doing a membrane sweep.
Yes. Definitely.
So that's basically the midwife or doctor would take their fingers, I think they use 2 fingers maybe, and they gently just sweep between the amniotic sac and the uterus, all the way around. And what this does is it can stimulate the uterus to start contractions, because it's kind of like moving the sac away from the uterus a bit.
Yeah, that's a good way of
It's very uncomfortable.
Oh,
very uncomfortable. It shouldn't hurt, but it's very uncomfortable. It can cause some cramping
and bleeding.
Slight bleeding.
Super normal. Yeah.
But again, if your body's not quite ready, you could actually do this, and then nothing actually starts, just like any induction method.
If your baby isn't really ready, then really nothing.
Yeah, it's true.
So I mean,
literally,
exactly. They won't.
Yeah. So a lot of women will, at the end, when they are at their due date, or if they're having some kind of issues, they will ask their healthcare provider to get a membrane sweep. That's quite common, actually.
Yeah, especially if they're saying, like, we should get ready for an induction.
Yeah.
Like, medically, a lot of women will be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can do that. So,
That's true.
I would definitely take that over the medical way of taking a drip.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one I can think of that would be under the natural umbrella would be breaking of the waters.
Yeah.
I mean, this one kind of is leaning towards more like medicalized, but it's still natural because you don't have any actual medication.
Absolutely.
This one, the breaking of the waters, basically the healthcare provider takes this special hook thing, and they insert it into the cervix, and they're grabbing the amniotic sac and breaking a hole so that the water just comes out.
Yeah.
And the idea is that they're hoping that the breaking of the waters starts the contractions. Yeah. And most of the time, it actually will.
It actually does, yeah.
But on occasion, it won't.
Mm-hmm.
And then if your water has been broken for too long and contractions didn't start, it can be dangerous for the baby.
And that's
that is the risk that you do have if you choose to do that.
They typically say 24 hours you have. Midwives sometimes let you go a little bit longer. I mean, I did a little bit, but that's because she was checking to see if I had a fever and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was okay. So, but
Yeah.
most healthcare providers will say 24 hours.
Yeah.
Or your risk for infection is higher.
That's true.
Yeah.
So with my last baby, my fourth one, I did have the waters broken.
Because you were a week over?
I was 1 week past, and my husband worked shift work out of town. He was supposed to go back in 2 days.
You're like,
And you can't go back to work. Like literally in a different province.
Baby coming. It's yours. Like,
like in a different province. I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are we gonna do? He's like, I don't know. So I talked to my midwife, and she's like, I said, can you do like a membrane sweep maybe? And she said, I can, but it might be more effective if I maybe tried breaking your water. So we can talk about that. So we talked about the risks and the benefits, blah, blah, blah. I decided to go with breaking of the waters, and it worked for me with that one.
And like within like, hours.
So my waters were broken at 5:30, and by 7, almost 7:30 maybe.
You started
I was putting my children to bed, and I had my first like a real contraction.
Yeah.
And then like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like maybe half an hour of like, okay, this is starting to build up, and then they were getting intense. And then 4 hours later, I had the baby. So it worked for me, but it doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't always work, no. Yeah. But that was really fast and awesome for you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So then there is the other route, which is the medicalized route, which you go to a hospital to get these types of inductions.
Yeah. So one is the drip, taking Pitocin.
It's the synthetic oxytocin.
Synthetic form, yeah.
And you get it through an IV.
Yeah, and it helps to get contractions going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's probably, I think, the most common method.
I think so, yeah.
Sometimes they will give you prostaglandins, either orally or suppository that they put into the vagina.
Yeah. That
will hopefully start to soften the cervix.
Yeah.
So it depends if you've even like slightly started to get closer to labor. Like, have you even started to soften down there?
Yeah. If not, then yeah.
If you haven't at all, then they would probably do that route first before giving you the Pitocin.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So then I guess the question would be, when would you need to do these methods? So we kind of talked a little bit about this. We said if you were over your due date, couple weeks, but we also said like for medical reasons. So what kind of medical reasons?
Well, high blood pressure for sure. That was my client. It's not something she wanted. She wanted to have a home birth and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you got to make sure that everything's okay. So I would say medical.
So high blood pressure.
Actually, your age can make a difference. They sometimes will be like, well, you want to make sure that everything's okay. Yeah. Because you're higher risk when you're older.
Yeah. If there seemed to be something going on with the placenta where it was no longer growing, or seemed to be like starting to detach on its own or something, that could be dangerous to the baby, then they would probably strongly suggest induction.
Absolutely, if you're overdue. Also, there's other ways you can induce medically too. They do this thing called a Foley. They'll stick it in there. It's like a balloon, and they dilate you. And then there's another thing, cervidil. They stick, it's like a tampon looking thing up into the cervix, and it's supposed to soften the cervix.
Yeah, that's the prostaglandins.
Yeah, that's the one you're talking about. Yeah, that's cervidil. Yeah. But yeah, why you would need it? I would just. I mean, it depends. If your healthcare provider, normally a midwife will check every single thing before they'll move to that. They'll be like, okay, what are our options here? And I mean, they're not one to just like push it in your face, you know? They're not like, okay, this is what we have to do. At the end of the day, it's up to you. They can't make you do anything, right? Like, there's some things that midwives can't do. It's out of their scope. So if you do have high blood pressure, they have to transfer you. And they, it's not what they want, but sometimes they have to. There's also risks to induction.
So this is the reason that we say it's nicer to try natural first.
Yes, and then
because the possible risks.
And then there is risks. Everything comes with risks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like, breaking your water, you can have something called a prolapsed cord, and that immediately is a C-section. So, you just have to.
It's very dangerous.
It's very, very dangerous. Mm-hmm. So, you just have to think, what are the risks, and like what are my options? Mm-hmm. And definitely advocate for yourself. And that's why we do these, is we want to share with you, your options.
Mm-hmm. There's also the risk of baby possibly not like having problems with the lungs. If you were early, like before your due date, and there was a medical reason you had to get induced, there's a possibility of like the baby just being born premature.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, if you have a medical induction,
the heart rate
can change. If you had a medical induction, then the contractions are often much more intense than they would be if your body was just starting them on their own. So Absolutely. That a lot of women do say that it's really intense, really fast.
They want epidural because it can get really intense.
Yeah, because your body's not slowly building up that oxytocin. It's being given it through the IV, usually.
Yeah.
And so you're getting whatever is being put into your body, and then that's why it can be like so much quickly instead of like a slow build up.
Yeah. Exactly. So that would definitely be something that not be fun.
There's always a possibility of bleeding, like
your
too much
uterus
bleeding.
Rupturing. That can happen too. Too much distress.
Yeah.
There can be things that definitely can happen.
Yeah. Although they are very rare.
Yes.
They can happen.
They still can happen. Yeah.
So you always need to weigh the risks and the benefits and decide, okay, so is having this induction actually necessary? Mm-hmm. Is it riskier for me to get this induction and know there's a possibility of these things happening? Or is it riskier for me to say, no, I'm going to wait and then have something else happen depending on the reason for that induction?
Yeah. And just know that you can be, your own advocate. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's your birth. And you can choose to do what you want,
That being said, there are many women who have inductions, whether natural or medical, who have beautiful births.
Yeah, I just had a client that did, and it was awesome. Mm-hmm. And she was totally against it. She wanted a home birth and then found out she couldn't because she had high blood pressure. And she was devastated by that. And then they were saying they wanted to induce her, and she's like, I'm not ready for this. I don't know what to do. And I was like, you're going to be fine. It's going to be good. And they ended up inducing her and putting her on a drip. And she did not get an epidural. She did amazing. Mm-hmm. I want to say it does take time for it to actually work. I think it was like 12 o'clock, and then started to induce her around 8, and then by 12 o'clock she started to have contractions, and then I want to say by like 2 they were pretty intense, and by 6 the baby was born, and everything went well. So she had everything she wanted still. So
everyone's body's just so different, so
yeah,
you can't even know what your timeline will be like.
No. All my labors were super long, and then your last one was super short. So you just never know what you're going to get.
That's true.
You really don't. And
and having an induction is no different than going into labor on your own. Like it's unpredictable to know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. And just know that it's just important that everyone's safe. And, sometimes there is things that arise and you do need C-section. And I'm not saying you don't, right? It's just if you're an advocate for yourself, you can maybe prevent that from happening.
The more you know, the better.
Yeah.
So that you can make the best choices that you need to make in the situation that you have, because every labor and birth is different.
It's all different. Yeah. And you just kind of have to go with the flow in the end, and everything will be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that about covers it.
I think so, yeah.
Hopefully you were able to learn something about labor inductions.
Yeah.
And if we did miss anything,
if you have
leave it
any
in the
questions,
comments. Let us know. Or if you have any topic ideas that you're interested in, you can leave that in the comments as well.
Absolutely.
We'd be happy to cover whatever topics come up that you guys are interested in.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you haven't yet, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe. And share. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just want to get this news out to people, and
exactly.
Yeah. Till next time.
What the mom?